Hey, what's going on? This is Sunshine.
This is E.
All right.
Welcome back, YouTube. Sunshine in the house. We are back, and Mr. E.
Right. So we got some. We're gonna go down the food route. We've been doing a lot of music. This time we're gonna do a little food. We're gonna kind of branch out a little bit, and this is food theory. So it's talking about Doritos, and are Doritos a ripoff?
I love Doritos.
I mean, yeah.
I don't love Doritos. I like Doritos.
The original ones, the red box.
Yes.
Bag? Okay.
Yeah.
I can go both ways. I like the blue bag too. That's fine. But I think they got
It's
some
all
other
right.
ones, but
It's okay.
Maybe both of them are ripoffs, so we'll see in a minute. But,
What?
Before we get into this, our Doritos a ripoff. Do me a favor, go ahead and take your phone and turn it back up and hit that like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Also share and comment below. But let's get into these Doritos. We get more into the comments towards the end, but just
I wonder what this. I'm curious. Really curious.
Let's see what's going on.
Don't fall for it again, Matt. Not again. Sure, that bag of Doritos looks like a deal there on the shelf, but you know what's gonna happen. You're gonna open it up, and it'll be 84% air and 16% chip. Happens every time. Don't let them get the better of you with some cheap psychological trick, Matt. Don't let them hurt you again. Have some willpower. Do not buy those Doritos. No!
Every time.
Oh, Matthew, tell me you didn't just eat an entire bag of Doritos by yourself.
Relax, Steph. It was 84% air. They all were. Internet, welcome to Food Theory, the show that's here to crunch the numbers that matter most to your stomach. Friends, of all the first world problems out there are exactly two that I believe should be upgraded to the rank of actual problem. One being that pizza boxes are too large to fit inside a normal refrigerator, and the other being the outrageous amount of air inside of chip bags. And yes, it is indeed outrageous. We went ahead and tested it. Busted out old water displacement method and everything. We found the average volume of sealed Doritos bags to be 3,274 milliliters. Meanwhile, the average volume of the chips with all the air vacuumed out was just 525 milliliters. That means 84% of what is inside that bag is air. 84%. Wrap your head around that one, friends. That is the equivalent of having a microwave delivered in a refrigerator box. Like, why are chip manufacturers so incredibly wasteful with their packaging? Why on earth would they willingly pay for more packaging material than necessary to shoulder the cost of shipping air all across the world? They could easily ship the same amount of Doritos in a bag, half the volume, so why don't they simply do that and pay for half as many trucks? Surely there is a reason for this that makes dollars and cents, which leads me to wonder, are chip manufacturers using deceptive packaging to trick consumers into paying more for less? Like how those seemingly huge chocolate bunnies you get around Easter always wind up being hollow, or how the pepperonis on frozen pizza always seem to be denser when the packaging is clear. On the other hand, maybe Frito-Lay actually has a good reason for selling us bags filled with mostly air. And if so, I am all ears. Hollow, chocolatey ears. But we need answers. And that's why today Food Theory is rolling up its sleeves, getting its hands dusty, and carrying out an experiment that'll answer this chippy little question once and for all. Are Doritos bags fair, or are they full of hot air? Not to go all clickbait on you, but the answers are actually really surprising. Now, an important thing to note about the quote-unquote air inside of a Doritos bag is that it's not actually air, it's truly nitrogen gas. Now, if that sounds like a dangerous substance for your food basket, don't worry, it's fine. In fact, 78% of the air filling your lungs at this very moment is nitrogen gas. Oxygen only makes up about 21% of the air that we breathe. Why fill chip bags with nitrogen gas, you ask? Because chips are actually able to stay fresh longer in an oxygen-free environment. O2 molecules like to create chemical reactions with all sorts tolerance of different partners, and these reactions are a big reason why food tends to go stale. N2 molecules, on the other hand, are more stable. They don't tend to react with other molecules nearly as easily. Plus, aerobic bacteria can't survive without oxygen, so that's a little perk of the job. Long story short, nitrogen gas plays a super important role inside your Doritos bag. But still gotta wonder, does there really need to be so much of the gas in there? Sure, chips may need an oxygen-free environment to stay fresh, but why couldn't nitrogen gas fill a smaller bag with the same number of Doritos inside? Appropriately sized bags can be oxygen-free too, you know. Which brings us to the other role that nitrogen gas plays inside our Doritos bag, slack fill. Ever notice how your chip bag is filled almost all the way, but it's never completely inflated and stretched out like a balloon? This is actually by design, and it allows the nitrogen gas to exist as a relaxed cushion around your chips, protecting them from damage during transport. Leaving the bag slightly underfilled prevents the bag from popping too easily, especially when it's traveling at high altitudes where atmospheric pressures diminish. Now, I can definitely understand why you wouldn't want your bag of Doritos to pop before it gets to the store, and I also get how a pocket of air could help protect Doritos if something were to impact the bag, but what about if the bag gets shaken? Having empty space surrounding the Doritos seems to fly in the face of everything we know about safety equipment like, I don't know, seat belts, which are designed to keep passengers snug in place so they don't rattle around inside the vehicle during an accident. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws here, but I'm just not convinced that Frito-Lay would inject that much air into their bags just to make sure that the chips don't break. For one thing, nitrogen gas doesn't seem to be doing a heck of a great job protecting the chips from breaking. I sent field researcher Luke out to examine 3 dozen 9 1/4 ounce bags of Nachos Cheesier. By weighing hundreds of full unbroken Doritos, we were able to determine that an average Dorito chip weighs 1.81 grams. The contents of a single Doritos bag average 241.5 grams, a bit less than the 262.5 that they claim on the packaging, meaning that our Doritos bags would have held an average of 133 full unbroken chips when they were prepared at the factory. But by the time they made their journey from the factory to the grocery store and eventually to Luke's house, only 33.1% of the chips managed to stay intact. 67% of all the Doritos we bought were broken by the time that the bag was opened. This means that while a typical Doritos bag leaves the factory with roughly 133 unbroken chips inside, only about 33 of them arrive at the destination fully intact. 100 break along the way. And look, I get that broken Doritos aren't the worst thing in the world. It's not like we're talking about fine china or a PS5 that gets rendered useless when it breaks in half. In my experience, broken Doritos are just as delicious as unbroken. 67% breaking strikes me as a pretty high casualty rate for a product that supposedly fills its bags with a special gas in order to prevent that very thing from happening. I just can't escape the feeling that at least part of Doritos' goal here is to trick consumers with oversized, deceptive packaging. And so, we designed an experiment to test whether all that extra airspace in the bag really helps, or if a different amount of gas might actually be more effective at keeping your Doritos intact. We began by gathering every single unbroken Dorito from all 36 Nacho Cheesier bags. It took a while, but luckily there were plenty of broken Doritos available to munch on whenever hunger struck. We then took 133 of those unbroken Doritos chips and sealed them away inside an empty bag. This, theoretically, is how a typical 9 1/4 ounce Doritos bag begins life in a factory, before any of the Doritos actually gets broken during the transport process. We called this one the average bag, since it was filled with the average number of Doritos. We made 2 other average bags, each with 133 unbroken Doritos inside, then sealed all 3 bags with 2,749 milliliters of atmospheric air, giving all of the bags the average 3,274 milliliters of total volume and the typical 84% air to 16% Dorito ratio. Yes, we took this way too seriously, but if we don't take it that seriously, who else will? And yes, just so we get everything on the table, we used atmospheric air instead of nitrogen gas. But we decided not to worry about it since keeping the Doritos fresh isn't a concern for this particular experiment. We then prepared a second set of Doritos bags much the same way, except we only put about half the normal number of Doritos inside, 67. We called this set of 3 bags the fewer chips bags since, pretty self-explanatory, they only had 8% Doritos by volume. Finally, we prepared 3 more chips bags, which contained, go figure, more than the usual amount of Doritos inside. Originally, we'd planned to put 266 unbroken Doritos, or twice the average amount, inside each of these 3 bags, but we ran into a problem. The chips wouldn't fit. That's right, despite the fact that 266 Doritos takes up way less volume than the bag's capacity of 3,274 milliliters, they were so awkwardly shaped that they simply couldn't all fit inside without being broken first. See, also, our film Theory episode on the coins in Scrooge McDuck's money bin for a deeper dive on this exact concept. And why yes, we do parody the DuckTales theme song in that episode. Thanks for asking. Anyway, in the end, we had to reduce the number of Doritos in our More Chips bags down to 163. That was the absolute maximum number of intact Doritos we were able to fit inside each bag. And to even get that many in, we had to carefully line them up side by side tightly against each other. Our More Chips bags ultimately wound up with 20% Doritos by volume, but gotta admit, it was not easy. And honestly, the whole process of refilling the Doritos bags made us realize something really important. 133 unbroken Doritos is basically the maximum number of chips that can fit loosely in a Doritos bag. It was actually pretty tough to get the bag closed with 133 loose chips inside in the first place. We had to shake it down a fair bit to make it work. Sure, there's a lot of air space inside the bag by the time it travels to the store and makes it to the grocery cart, but that's because a lot of chips have broken by that point. Look at it from the perspective of the worker at the Frito-Lay factory. Every bag they ship out from the factory is probably filled to the brim with perfect unbroken Doritos. So it was at this point in the experiment that we first felt a twinge of guilt about making this episode in the first place. Somewhere in the back of our minds, we began to understand that Doritos wasn't actually trying to trick us with deceptive packaging. They were actually just doing their very best to get the delicious tortilla chips out to the people of the world. Nevertheless, we choked back these sentimental feelings because science doesn't care about your feelings, and we pressed onward. Now it was time for the fun part, putting our experimental Doritos bags through a series of tortures. Alright, it was just like 2 tortures. Also, they weren't really tortures. We just kind of recreated the jostling and squeezing a real Doritos bag might encounter during the shipping process. After some trial and error, we developed 2 tests that, when carried out back to back, inflicted the perfect amount of damage. Since the real-life Doritos bags from the store averaged a breakage rate of 67%, we tweaked our Dorito torture such that they broke approximately 67% of the Doritos in the average bags as well. First Dorito torture, pressing. We gently laid a 25-pound or 11.4 kilogram weight on top of each Doritos bag for 10 seconds. This low-impact, high-pressure stress test was designed to assess how well each bag's air cushion protected the Doritos inside. Judging by the amount of crunching we heard from each bag, it's fair to say that the fewer chips bag, which contained the fewest Doritos and the largest air cushion, had fewer Doritos broken during the test than the other fuller bags did. The second torture, highly scientific test, was to drop bags onto the ground from a height of 8 feet. This sudden high-impact trial was meant to test the seatbelt theory, that Doritos packed tightly into a bag are better protected than loosely packed Doritos. Finally, after all bags were dropped, it was time to open them up and assess the damage. First up were the More Chips bags, and these guys had a rough time under that 25-pound weight. I wasn't expecting a whole lot of Doritos to be intact, and I was certainly right to think that. Of the 163 Doritos we packed inside each More Chips bag, only 33 of the chips made it out unscathed on average, for a breakage rate of nearly 80%. Next, we opened up the average bags. By design, 33.3 chips per bag made it through our Doritos tortures unbroken, for a breakage rate of about 75%. So the average bag clearly outperformed the More Chips bag. Not only was its breakage rate lower, but the average bag actually produced more unbroken chips overall, which is surprising since it had fewer chips to work with. Last but certainly not least, we had ourselves the fewer chip bags. Well, I guess they actually are least since they have the fewest number of chips, but whatever. I still think they're pretty great. Anyway, an average of 14.7 of every 67 chips made it through intact, giving the fewer chips bag a breakage rate of 78.1%. That's right, theorists. The average bag, patterned after the way Frito-Lay actually fills their bags in real life, performed the best, hands down. Packing more Doritos into the bag resulted in a higher percentage of broken Doritos. Placing fewer Doritos into the bag resulted in a higher breakage rate as well. The kicker is that the average bags produced an average of 33.3 unbroken chips per bag, the highest number of intact chips of any of our 3 competitors, period. So at this point, I'm busting out the couch and the sad music because this YouTuber owes Doritos an apology. Since the dawn of the internet, chip makers have been getting dragged for putting so much air into their chip bags, and I guess I got wrapped up in it all. Yeah, I'll admit it, when I first set out to make this video, I figured it would wind up being a bit of a takedown episode that showed how Doritos packaging is deceptive and doesn't actually help protect the chips. But the numbers are in, and Doritos straight up slapped me down on both fronts. Today's experiment demonstrates that the slack fill approach can't keep most Doritos in the bag from breaking, but the 84% gas to 16% chip ratio does cut down on chip breakage more than other fill ratios. So hats off to you, Doritos. I'm sorry that I ever doubted you. And hats off to our sponsor for today's episode, Noom. Steph and I have been using the health program Noom for a couple months now, and this thing is sneaky effective. It has this way of suggesting tiny little life changes that snowball into big, legit health improvements in our lifestyle. lifestyle. See, I'm not exactly what you call a diet person. I mean, clearly I'm not. I just spent the last week testing entire bags of Doritos. But gotta say, I have been really impressed with the simplicity and approach of Noom's program. Like the other day, the program suggested that I should just try working my favorite green food into my diet. Joke's on them, my favorite green food is green M&Ms. Booyah! Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, it's broccoli, closely followed by asparagus. Seems too easy to actually work, right? And yet here I am 4 days later in the recording booth. I just finished eating breakfast and I worked spinach into my morning eggs for the 3rd consecutive morning. And I think that's because Noom's approach is different from anything I've tried before. They're really focused on disrupting behaviors and routines using proven psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy practice. And this is by no means the most impressive part of their program, not even close, but something that's been shockingly helpful for me is how it lets me track my water intake. I've been trying to get better about drinking water since forever.
Okay, all right. I think we're gonna stop this because this is getting into the new little change of diet stuff. So sorry if that was my fault. I didn't stop it long before that. But yeah, I mean, I don't care how my Doritos get to. I mean, I appreciate having full together Doritos. I get it. But it does cause you to buy more bags because you get the broken, you know. So, I mean, maybe that's a tactic too but then again, I got to give it to them because now they have the little bitty bags. You can get it for like, what, 50 cents or 30, something like that. Or, something like that. So, it kind of works.
But see, I don't even think anybody's issue was about broken Doritos. You know, if you had twice as many Doritos and the same amount of unbroken, people will go for the bigger bag with more in it. You know, just have, you know, I don't think people really care about that. Plus, even if you took 2 bags, and they should have done this, and took it on the street and done this and test people. Yeah. If you took 2 bags, one is half the size, but the same amount of Doritos are in it, people will consistently buy the bigger bag.
Probably
even if
you
told them that there was the same amount in it.
Yeah, probably
because that is a visual. It's just if they actually packed it for what the people wouldn't spend the amount of money they spend for it. Just like the big bags they have in the store and the Doritos, if they really packed it like this, you're not gonna spend the same amount. So I think that has something to do with it too.
That feels a little heavy.
Right.
I do test out the bags, but you know,
and that's weird because it's supposed to be the same amount in each bag, but people do test and say, oh, this one.
Some of them feel heavier than others.
Yeah, now I test them just to see if they're, especially the ones where you get 2 for $1. I test them. I just squeeze them so make sure they're.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say sometimes squeeze down.
If you squeeze it and the air comes out, you know the bag might be broken. It could be stale. So that's really one of the reasons why I really test it. But it should be. That's another. You know, if you took 2 identical bags, none of them were broken, and you squeeze, and one had a little bit more air, and it was. People probably buy that one because it's just psychologically they think there's more in there. So I think it's a combination of 2, the not breaking the chips and the visual of what they're expecting you to pay versus what you see.
Yeah, because people commonly think, oh, I'm getting ripped off. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is air.
Right.
You know, paying for air. You know, nitrogen, whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's all bags. And it's funny how you talk about the corner of the bag. You know, I don't want to. Well, I shouldn't put this out. I don't think nobody ever do it. But if you really want to, you know, get to people in society and knock them out and get them ready, put a little poison on the tips of each of the bags because everybody tits it up. I mean, if you want to make an attack on,
don't
let's put that.
Don't listen.
Because everybody most. I think that's a good. What percentage of people, and this has got to do with the breakage of the chips, actually turn the bag up? I think most people do it. So
it all depends on where I'm at. You know, because sometimes I'll take it and I'll just do it in my hand and do it that way. So it all depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing and who I'm surrounded by.
Right. So I guess that sums it up. But, you know, like I said, I didn't really think about the broken chips. I didn't think that had anything to do with the size of the bag. But now we know that. I guess maybe they got some information that told them that's why they do it. Because I would have never thought to think that was why, to prevent chips from breaking. But because there's some, like when you take some chips, there's some chips that are like, you got some tough tortilla chips, tough other chips that you know can manage. You could fill those up because I think because they're a little tougher chipping. But
like the tortillas.
Yeah, or Ruffles. Some Ruffles are a little tougher. I don't know, but you know.
Ruffles? No, they ain't bad. They must Ruffles.
I mean, some Ruffles are. Well, I guess maybe the generic ones are a little tougher than the other ones. Then you have the kettle. The kettles are kettle.
Yeah, those
are tougher. And so, you know, they could probably pack those a little bit more, but I guess, you know, why do it if they don't have
Watch
chicken?
right.
But y'all let us know what y'all think.
I guess.
Before we get out and do us a favor, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, also share and comment below. And I do believe that's it.
I think that's it. Thanks for listening to Sunshine and E. Now, honey, let's go get some Ruffles. I think I want some Ruffles now. So.
With some little onion dip. Okay.
No, just regular Ruffles.
Okay.
You can have the onion dip.
We got it.